The island of New Wessex, although known for its standard gauge railways, had something many would consider much more interesting, especially for the British Isles. From Stowmouth, a narrow gauge railway snaked its way up the valley towards the thick woodlands of what was now known as the township of Wessex Canyon. Many at this point would scoff and say, so what? Across the Harlech Straits is Wales, a country renowned the world over for its narrow gauge railways. However, our narrow gauge railway differs in many different ways. Not at least because of its American origins. The Wyvern Railroad was the brainchild of Edgar von Braun, an American entrepreneur who had made his home on the island at the start of the century. The railroad brought lumber down from the hills to Stowmouth for export around the country and especially to North America. The 3 locos in its rolling stock were built from patterns and spare parts gained from the Colorado Central Railroad's 3-foot fleet. Alfred, Geralt and Roach were their names, and they'd run the railroad since they'd been assembled at Alfriston Works. Their hard work and dedication to the island's economy had worked wonders, and they were as much a part of the island's psyche as my own fleet of engines. On this particular morning, I could be found with Edgar down at our favourite cafe in Stowmouth.
So, Monty, how's your side doing? I noticed less freight traffic in your yard last week.
It would be easier to explain what hasn't happened. It's been a rather stressful month or 2 since the audit.
Well, this is the benefit of being a private railroad, my friend. None of those silly inspectors making you seem bad.
Tell me about it. Sometimes I wish I could break with BR and have done with it. Bring back the New Wessex Railway Company, you know.
Well, why can't you?
I just cannot justify the expense. Cutting all the ties. I'd have to send back most of the fleet, and then what would I run my trains with?
Can't you just ask that guy in Kent to help out?
What, Lord Dark?
No, the other guy. Mr. Duxby, was it?
Oh, Mr. Dexby.
Yeah, that guy. Can't he loan you his engines back?
If I could, I would. He's got too much work for him just to loan the entire fleet back. Besides, it's not going to happen. I've just got to work through it all and hope my engines don't screw up anymore.
One day you'll get your railway back, I'm sure.
Just then came the long chime whistle of one of the Wyvernvale locos.
That'll be Alfred coming down with the next load of wood.
Sure enough, the whistling continued, and from through the arch came Alfred, hauling a long train of lumber bound for the States.
Good morning, sirs. Wonderful day, isn't it?
It sure is, Al.
It is indeed a lovely morning.
Sir, I was wondering if I could ask about that bit of routine maintenance that I've got scheduled in.
I mean, sure. What's up?
Well, you see, I was hoping that I could have a new pair of front wheels. They're getting on a bit.
We'll see, Alfred. Get on with your work for now and leave it with me.
Alfred moved off again, heading into the yard. Edgar was looking sheepish. Right, come on then, Edgar, what are you hiding from him? Wheel patterns and spares are easily available.
What if I told you our spare stock had dried up?
How? I thought you could buy spares from the US. Furthermore, surely you have patterns for them all here.
Well, the spares haven't been available for 12 years.
12 years?
The railroad I was buying them from closed 12 years ago, and the engines, spares, and patterns were destroyed.
Surely you brought the patterns and spares with you. We constructed the locos at Alfredston.
Those spares have run out too, and the patterns are lost. I have no idea what to do.
Edgar, this is a huge problem. How have you been getting by?
I've been instructing my staff to remachine and restore the old parts of the engines. It's not been ideal, but still, it's worked for now. The parts I bought when the railroad closed in the US were never delivered.
Well, you must make inquiries.
Don't you think I've tried that?
Okay, let me do some digging too. I'll track down those lost parts. In the meantime, you can explain to your locos what's going on.
I'd rather not, to be honest.
Why not?
Well, you see, they may not even know that their cousins back in the US have been scrapped.
Oh, Edgar, you really need to tell them. You can't allow this to continue.
Monty, I can't just tell them.
You must, or I will. Anyway, as always, Edgar, it's been an enlightening conversation, but I must get back to my railways affairs. Lots to smooth over. You haven't got any jobs for Mr. Pocock, have you?
I'll see what I can muster up. No promises, though.
I stood up and walked away, back to the station, leaving Edgar to ponder his current predicament. It was a very dangerous place to find himself. Potential excessive wear and tear on his locomotives could lead to disasters if not rectified. Later that afternoon, Alfred was up at the lumber yard. He was waiting for his wagons to be loaded. He was chatting to Roach, who was waiting for the line to clear so he could head to Stowmouth. Their little conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Geralt.
Good afternoon, Geralt.
How's it going, you two? Sat around gossiping while I do the hard work?
We're sat around gossiping because we're so efficient and we're waiting for you to arrive.
Ooh, feisty this afternoon.
All right, Geralt, there's no need for that, is there?
What? I didn't say anything.
If you said even less, you might be more popular.
Oh, come on. Low blow, man.
Friendly fire much?
The three engines laughed. They were a close team, and although the banter might have seemed rather harsh and mean, they cared for each other.
Anyway, quickly before Roach has to leave the scene of the crime, I have news.
If it's about those fucking massive seagulls again.
No, I overheard something this morning.
Oh, proper gossip this is. Come on, spill.
Well, I asked Edgar if my front wheels could be replaced at my upcoming overhaul, you know. Fairly easy request to uphold.
Yeah, so what?
Well, he didn't answer me properly. Not really. He said he'd see what could be done, and I thought nothing of it until I was shunting my train around. What do I hear? Something about spare parts being unavailable, closed railroads, and scrap?
Oh, get over yourself. You're just hearing things. They're probably talking about the standard gauge lot. I heard British Railways is publishing a report into the management of the railways. That's probably all it is. Nothing for us to worry about.
No, I definitely heard it coming from Edgar. I reckon it's something to do with us, and I intend to get to the bottom of it.
Right. Whilst you're off being Sherlock Holmes, I'd like to get to the bottom of the railway so I can unload this lumber. So if you're done with your conspiracies, I'd like to get going.
Geralt moved into the yard, unblocking the exit, and allowing Roach to depart through the town towards Stowmouth. The town of Wessex Canyon had built up around the lumber yards at the end of the valley. Much like the railway, it was American through and through, having been populated by American immigrants who'd moved for the job opportunities. Such was the affluence of the town that many new Wessex natives had also moved in. The town was split in half by the railway as it ran down the middle of Main Street. This, as much as the rest of the American culture, was a huge attraction for tourists. Although, they had to take buses to the town due to the lack of passenger services provided by the Wyvernvale line. A couple of days passed, and Edgar still hadn't told the engines about their predicament. They continued to work hard though, as they always did. It was one morning before work, and they were being prepared at the Roundhouse in Stowmouth.
You haven't heard anything about your routine maintenance then, Alfred?
Of course not, Roach.
No need to be worried then?
Don't be so sure. I reckon there's something going on, and we've been dark to it for some time.
But Gerald said it was probably to do with the standard gauge guys.
Yeah, probably. But what about the small chance that it's us?
Good morning, engines. I couldn't help but overhear what you were saying. I was actually on the way down here to give you some bad news.
Oh God, Alfred, you were right. We're going to be scrapped and the railroad closed.
Anyways, as I was going to say, no, you're not getting scrapped, and no, the railroad is not closing.
Well, that is good news.
I told you!
So that's not your fate, but our primary problem is the lack of parts. I haven't had any spares come down from the States, and since Alfred's and Works closed down to locomotive maintenance a few years ago, Lord Stavell hasn't been able to build the new parts for you guys. Most of what you're using is your own parts that have been refurbished to the best of our abilities here.
This was when I arrived, and put my foot right in it. Good morning, Edgar and Engines.
Good morning, Monty. I was just doing what you told me I should do and telling these guys straight.
Oh, excellent. I'm so sorry for your loss.
Not that, but...
Whoops.
What does he mean, sorry for our loss?
Is this to do with the lack of spare parts?
Well, yeah, so... Your cousin's back on the Colorado Central Railroad. Their line was shut 12 years ago and, well... They were scrapped, as far as I know.
Scrapped?
I tried to buy them, I really did. All I managed to buy was a complete catalog of spare parts, which didn't even arrive. I tried, but I've failed you guys.
May I interject?
Not yet. We still have to come to terms with this.
It's about the spare parts.
What about them?
Well... Hey, Rook, this is a long shot, but do you remember about 12 years ago receiving a shipment of parts from the Colorado Central Railroad? Oh yeah, sure, they were commandeered by the War Department. They were taken by an engine up to Alfriston MOD. Is there any chance they might have been saved and not melted down? Well, it's worth asking. I shall. Thank you, Rook. No problem. So, I did some digging at the War Department base and found some abandoned Nissen huts at the back of the complex, and guess what they were full of?
Please say it's what I think it is.
Yes, they were absolutely full of spare parts for the engines here, and some parts for coaches and wagons.
You're not serious, are you?
No way!
Yes way. And right now I've set some old workers from Alfriston Works to refurbish all those parts ready for you guys to use. Once it's all done, they'll be delivered here.
But Alfriston Works has been closed for years. BR wouldn't allow funds to refurbish private railroad parts.
That's why I'm paying for it myself. Call it an apology for dumping the sad news on you.
Well, thank the Lord, and thank you, Monty. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much, sir.
You're very welcome. Anyway, I'll leave you to it. I'm sure you have much to discuss and cousins to mourn. I walked away, allowing the Wyvernvale engines and their manager time to talk, to understand, and to come to terms with the morning's revelations. Little did we know that these such revelations would soon allow for more opportunity and success to come to the railroad and the towns it served.